Leroy Henry. This is my senior project presentation video portion. Wizards Rise, Quest for the Last Staff. Background. I've been a video gamer since I was 4 years old. I have a big passion for video games. It's been a big part of my life ever since I can remember. Video games combine all of my favorite things: art, music, computers, technology, and puts it all into one art form that can be individualized, experienced by the player. It's something that I love to do, and it's something I've always had a high interest in. And creating one was really an experience and something I wanted to try. I decided to develop my game on Unity. There's a lot of fun games I played on Unity, and it seemed to be the it seemed to be the best platform for me to use because of its cross-platform. Is kept in mind, so you can develop many games across many types of platforms, and it just seemed like something that I would want to use. I use PowerPoint as well to crop my sprites, and C# is the component of the script, so I had to learn C# in order to program scripts in Unity. I had to learn Unity's objects, the components that the objects use and how they interact with each other, the physics engine in Unity, scene management in Unity, and rigid bodies that give the objects their physics. Software, iOS, since this is a mobile app, Unity, Windows 10, PowerPoint, Visual Studio, Windows 10, and iPhone for my hardware, Description: it is a game I developed for iOS. It's a 2D vertical fetch quest scroller. A wizard at the end of his days sets out on a quest for the fabled last staff, as the magic has all but been forgotten today. The staff is said to have powers beyond imagination. One must wonder what sorts of feats can be accomplished with such a powerful tool. The player plays as a wizard who must maneuver his way safely down the treacherous cave in order to retrieve the last staff that waits at the bottom. Once retrieved, the player must safely ascend the cave, avoiding hazards in order to win the game and restore magic back to the realm. Here are my use cases. You start off with the main menu. From there, you click play. When you click play, it creates the background, creates the player, adds the UI, and creates the objects. The player can be controlled by the user, and so the player can move the wizard up and down, left or right. And there you have it. Here is the main menu for my game. When you press play, it leads from the main menu scene to the gameplay scene. Here's the gameplay scene that you'll be introduced to when you start off. The bottom right controls the wizard's up and down movements. It extends the rope and retracts the rope. There's a pause button at the top right that pauses the game and brings up two options: restart and resume. And in the bottom left, there's an invincibility button I use for testing. The gameplay objective is to get to the bottom of the cave without touching any traps or hazards and avoiding obstacles, grabbing the staff, and making it back to the top of the cave. The masterful mage carrying his staff. This is the wizard sprite after the staff has been collected. When the wizard comes into contact with objects, all his body parts detach. The body parts are connected with hinge joints. Each hinge joint is connected to the main body of the wizard. And once the wizard touches the traps, it uses a signal on touch script. What the signal on touch script does is it checks to see if the object that came into contact with the trap was tagged as player. And if it was tagged as player, it runs a function. So the function that is going to run is going to destroy the wizard. Once the wizard makes it to the top with the staff, you win the game. This is done with a collider that's invisible. The collider has another signal on touch component attached to it, and with that the function that it runs is it essentially checks. It says, hey, is the wizard holding the staff? This is done through a Boolean. So the holding staff is set to false originally, and once the wizard collects the staff, it will be set to true. If true, boom, the game is won. If false, nothing happens. Some more user interface. When you press the pause button, here's the reset and the resume game button. The reset game button brings the wizard to the top. The resume button continues the game. This first script is what allows the camera to follow the wizard. It sets the position of the camera to the position of the wizard. This is the InputManager script. This InputManager script uses the input class of Unity to get the acceleration of the tilt of the phone. And we store that in a vector called Excel. And then we use Excel.x to store that as a float of sideways motion. This class is a singleton as well. Singletons can only be instantiated once, and they can be used with any script and any game object. The reason we want to instantiate this once is because we don't want to have to continue to keep looking for this. We don't want to be able to recreate this again. We want one way to input our motion, and that's through the tilt of the phone. We don't want to create any more objects of that. It could really mess up the game. Here's the rope script. The rope is a collection of game objects. It's put into a list. Each game object is connected by a spring joint. The way I looked at it was, this is a linked list, and each spring joint is a pointer to another game object. They all have rigid bodies, and the ropes are then the game objects are then linked to the line renderer. What the line renderer does is it takes any number of points and creates a line through them. So we go through, find every single point in our list, every single game object in our list, and we want to connect the line renderer to them to create an actual visual line. Here's the signal on touch script that checks to see if the object that's touched an object is tagged player. And if it's not, it does nothing. If it does, it wants to invoke an event. When you invoke an event, it is basically, you can call whatever function you want inside of the inspector. So you can drag and click the function that you want. Click and drag, excuse me. Here's our swinging script. What this does is it takes the sideways motion that we got from InputManager and sets it to a float inside of this class. Then we take that float and we want to use a multiplier to it so we can raise or lower the force that is being applied to the wizard. And we also want to set the Y force to 0. We don't want to change the Y at all because that is done through our buttons. And then we want to apply it to our wizard. Here are my test results. Everything went according to plan, with difficulties of course, but everything went according to plan. The only thing I wasn't able to do was get my app deployed on the App Store because it costs money. Some challenges I had was I had a class called Reset Table. Now the Reset Table class, when the function reset was called, it would go through and it would look for each component that had each game object that had a reset table component and reset it back to its original parameters. Unfortunately though, I was using a for each loop, and to use a for each loop, you need to have an enum declared for that class. I didn't, so I had to declare a class. I had to declare an enum for the reset table class. The wizard used to leave the camera view, so I created borders so it couldn't leave anymore. The wizard used to spin. The wizard still does spin out of control sometimes when it hits an object a certain type of way. I haven't figured out how to fix this one yet. It has something to do with Unity's physics, but I'm not sure. And destroying the child body parts in the wizard object was a challenge at first because I didn't know that they weren't being destroyed to begin with. So I had to go and find each component inside of the child objects and destroy them to get rid of the entire wizard and stop the body parts from piling up. Future enhancements. I want to add more objects, more hazards with animations to spice up the game, bring it more to life. I want to add music and audio feedback so the user gets a feel for the world and create more world building. I definitely want to add more backgrounds to the levels to make it more visually appealing. And I want to randomize the level as well and deploy to the App Store. This has been my presentation portion of my project. Thank you guys for tuning in. Have a blessed